Hello and welcome to Make It Happen with Will Polston. I'm Will Polston. This is episode number 141, and in this episode I'm joined by my good friend Michael Heppell for the second time. Michael is an international best-selling author of 7 books, including How to Be Brilliant. His books have been translated into 27 languages and include the Sunday Times #1 bestseller, Flip It. His latest book, 17, The Little Way to Get a Lot Done, was launched in September 2020. His passion is presenting and has been described as one of the top 3 professional speakers in the world. He works with individuals and organisations who are dissatisfied with being good and have a desire to be brilliant. Through his events and coaching, Michael has worked with everyone from Category B prisoners to business leaders, from Premiership footballers to TV personalities. Davina McCall credits Michael as the person who in 1 hour changed his life. Michael works with his wife and business partner Christine, and in 2001 they set a goal to positively influence 1 million lives. Through presentations, training, books, audio programs and coaching, they hit this target several years ago and now have the goal to positively influence everyone they connect with. And in this episode we're going to be talking about Michael's book Flip It, How to Get the Best Out of Everything. So Michael, welcome to the show.
It is so brilliant to be here, Will. I've been excited about this for weeks, mainly because of the number of reminders that have been sent to me to make sure that I'm definitely going to be here. Do you have guests forget sometimes?
We don't like to leave any stone unturned. We like to make sure that you are fully aware of this is happening. So yeah, really looking forward to it. So for everybody that's listening, this is Michael Heppell 2.0, and it's not because he's upgraded himself. It's because I had the pleasure of having Michael on the podcast, well, probably a couple of years ago now. So it's wonderful to have you back. Thank you for coming back. Very rare that I have guests back for a second time. So it truly is great to have you here. So I'm going to start off today with something that I started our conversation with before we went off online, which is the power of goal setting, really. Because what if you listen to the very first episode, you'll know that I sort of declared my admiration for Michael, who I'm very pleased to say and proud to say has become a friend over the last few years, because I was recommended to read one of his books called How to Be Brilliant. And it just dawned on me, just as we were starting this episode, that I am sat with my old goals folder. So I used to have this big yellow folder. In fact, for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, this is it. You can see it. It's all battered and bruised. And I used to keep this in my desk in my office in London, and I'd pull it out every week and I'd read my goals and write my goals, and all of the personal development work I did was in these goals. And what I did was I took Michael's book and I did the exercises, because so many people, I mean, you've got hundreds of books behind you, Michael, that they don't do the exercises, do they?
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic thing. People say, "Oh, I've read that book," and I say, "Have you done that book?" Because it's not about knowing. The secret isn't in knowing. The secret's in the doing. And How to Be Brilliant is the classic for that. And I say to people right at the start, do the exercises. And I once coached a guy who some people might have heard. He's called Patrick Kilty, comedian, TV presenter. He says he's now famous for being Cat Deely's husband. That's his most famous thing. But I coached Patrick, and he read How to Be Brilliant on a plane. And he rang me when he got to America, and he said, "You must make sure people do the exercises. Michael, you have to do the exercises." He says, "I read the first 2 chapters. I was reading it, I was enjoying it, I was hearing it in your voice. And then I suddenly thought, stop." Michael said, "Have you done the exercises?" And I heard your voice say, "Have you done it? Have you done it?" So I went back and I literally started to do all of the exercises. And all the way through the book, he said, I wrote notes and I did the exercises there and then. I challenged people on the plane. I did the thing about getting out of my comfort zone. I did everything during that journey. And he said, in the space of a 12-hour flight, it's completely changed my life. I was like, yeah, that's what it is. He goes, "But you don't tell people enough. You're not telling people to do this enough." I was like, "All right, Patrick, I've got it. So now I'm a big fan of doing exactly what you've done and saying, look, this is the advantage of not just knowing it, but doing it."
To the point where I've literally just sent you the photos of my terrible handwriting And it's quite funny reflecting back on some of these goals now, because I wouldn't deem them as goals. You know, they're too vague and et cetera, et cetera. But it was something. I was doing something. And I think that quite often is the challenge with most people is they never put pen to paper. They never do something.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they are frustrated years later. Yeah, exactly.
But you know, the interesting thing with that picture you sent me is you dated when you did it. And you should always put the date when you do these things. If you're capturing something, if you do an exercise, always write the date. And this is the 13th of the 1st, 2013. So this is nearly 10 years ago. And some of the things that you wrote down there, you know, it's you can look at them and go, they feel a bit out there. But actually, I'm reading that now, and that looks like I'm reading your life. You know, the things that you've got on there, you know, that is you. Those things are you, you know, about the contribution, about I'm brilliant with my money, I stick to my budget. You do that now, didn't used to, I know. You know, you've got, you know, stuff about your career, you know, family stuff, personal development. There's loads and loads of great stuff there. And I think you become the person who you design, not the person who you can, it just accidentally happens. You sit down, you design that person, and then you become it. And that's what you've done with that. It's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, it is. It really is quite interesting to read some of these things. But what I really wanted to talk about today was another book that you wrote, which was a Sunday Times bestseller.
Stop. No. It wasn't a Sunday Times bestseller.
Oh, right. Okay.
It was a Sunday Times #1 bestseller. Now we gotta get this right.
Okay.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
A bestseller is anything in the top 20. This is a number. The number one.
There it is.
The #1 bestseller. You know why, don't you? Do you know why it became a Sunday Times #1 bestseller?
Because you told your mum about it, and she bought all of the books available on the day of launch. She was proud.
Exactly it. No, the reason why and I'll be completely honest with your listeners with this, because obviously I think it's a great book. There's no doubt about it. My publisher thought it was a great book, but you know, if you keep putting it out there and you communicate with people and you connect with people and you do stuff for people, it kind of has to come back. The law of reciprocity, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. And because I talked to somebody who talked to somebody who talked to somebody, Chris Evans, the radio DJ, got a copy of Flip It. And 2 weeks before Christmas, I got a phone call and it said, "Hi, we're from the Chris Evans Show on Radio 2. Chris would like to interview you on the show this week. Would you like to do it?" I was like, yeah, of course. And it was when he was doing drive time on Radio 2. So there's 8.5 million people listen to that show. And I was like, this is absolutely brilliant. So I got in touch with my publisher and I said, this is going to happen later on this week. Now, well, if it definitely happens, let us know, because sometimes these things don't happen. I went, but we need to make sure there's going to be lots of books. And I went, yeah, but what's he going to do? Is he going to? I said, I don't know, but we've got to make sure it happens. Anyway, I offered to go down to the studio and they said, well, it's very kind, but you're in Northumberland. We'll just do it on the phone. So it was a Thursday night. And the show came on at 5 o'clock. And this, I always remember his opening words. It said, "Welcome to Drive Time on Radio 2 with me, Chris Evans. Today's show is brought to you by my Christmas book recommendation." Wow. It's called Flip It. I've read it. I love it. It is the ultimate. It's the best. And I've got the author on talking about it later. And I was upstairs listening to this, and I went downstairs and I looked at Christine, my wife. She looked at me, and I just mouthed. And she was like, "Right, get back up, get ready for it. Just be calm, be calm." And I had all these stories ready. I had all this content to talk about the book. Chris came on, and he talked about the book for about 7 minutes. I just said yes, and oh yeah, of course. And he talked about each of the chapters, talked about the impact that he had. He said, and he said, "This is my Christmas book recommendation. Everybody buy 10 copies. Give it to all your friends. They will thank you for it." And Sally Traffic, who does the traffic on this show, she said, "Is it really that good though? Give me an example." And he went, bam, straight into 2 or 3 examples. And she went, "Oh, it does sound good." He goes, "Sally, I'm going to give you a copy. Everybody should get a copy of this book. It's brilliant." And of course, it just sold out everywhere straight away. The slight challenge was it was 2 weeks before Christmas. So getting reprints was a real challenge, and all the stock was sold out, and that's what threw it up to #1 on Sunday Times. The next week, you couldn't buy it; you couldn't get copies anywhere because they hadn't been printed and distributed. And they're always a week and a half behind with the Sunday Times. So it was the first week in January that this was the #1 bestseller from sales from the week before Christmas. Wow. And then everyone was like, "Oh, that's amazing! It's amazing!" And I said, "You can't buy it now; it's going to drop out." "Oh, no, they'll find a way." Well, of course they don't find a way. And it was another 4 weeks before it went back into the chart, but it didn't get back to #1. So I was #1 for 1 week, but I don't care. I'll take that one. I'm a Sunday Times #1 best-selling author, and it's all thanks to Chris Evans.
Well, there we go. But it's not, though, is it? Let's be honest. It's not, because what we started opening this conversation about was taking action. And you said, I spoke to someone that spoke to someone that spoke to someone, and it ended up with him. If you hadn't have done that, then it's unlikely that may have ever happened.
That's true.
It's interesting. So there's a famous book, you've certainly heard of it, and many people listening would have heard of it, called Chicken Soup for the Soul, Mark Victor Hansen. And I interviewed Mark last year, and what amazed me, this book came out 25 years ago, I think. He's still doing interviews on it. He believes in the book, he believes in what he's doing, and I wonder it's sold however many millions of copies, but he's taking the action, he's putting things out there, and people think that I mean, people talk about it all the time, overnight success. Is it ever overnight success? I don't think so. There's been time, energy, effort that's gone into things that have got people to where they've got to. And
the other thing with the overnight successes, that can happen, but they're a one-hit wonder. It's very difficult to sustain. There's sometimes people will have something and they become, wow, really well known for it immediately, and then it disappears. And it's because they haven't got all the stuff. I talk about the base of the iceberg. The bit that you see is the bit on the top. All the other work, all the other research, all the other hours, that's all the bit that goes underneath that nobody's going to see. But when it comes off, when it happens, that's what you can rely on later on. You can go back to it and say, I've got content, I've got material, I've got things I can share with people, I've got skills, I've got tools, I've got all of those other things that go with it. It's never time wasted.
Very true. So flip it then. Let's get into flip it, because I think with the world the way that it is at the moment, especially here in the UK with all of the stuff we've got going on with politics and all that fun stuff at the moment, I think people could definitely benefit from understanding some of the principles in flip it.
Yeah. Well, somebody said to me the other day, your book Flip It should be given to every single MP at the moment, everybody who's involved with politics, all the big decision makers. And I was like, you know what? It's got to start with intent. And unless you want to change something, unless you want to change yourself, don't bother reading Flip It, because it is going to challenge you all the way through to change things about you. And it's actually going to challenge you to change some of the things that you are already happy with to make them even better. So, it's the subtitle is how to get the best out of everything. And I don't think that's being greedy. I think it's just wanting to get the best out of every situation. So the classic thing that a great friend of mine, Tim Brownson, said, he said, Michael, you managed to get a Sunday Times #1 best-selling book out of one idea called reframing. I was like, yeah, I don't care. It is. It's just reframing done in lots of different ways and demonstrated in lots of different ways. And he said, yeah, but surely it could have just been one chapter. And I went, yeah, that's like saying that life is only one thing. It's not. You have a problem with your car, you have a problem in your relationships, you have a problem with your health, you have a problem with, finances, you've got a lack of confidence, you've got a problem in your job. Lots of different things are happening in lots of different ways, and they need different tools. You don't just use a hammer to fix everything. So what Flip It is about is giving people the right tools to reframe to get the best out of any situation at any particular time.
So let's use some contextual examples. And you just used a great example when we were speaking before about a situation with your car that's just happened, because this is, you're not some wise sage that never has any issues in life and everything's absolutely hunky dory. You still have to apply this stuff on a regular basis, right?
And you know what? I catch myself not flipping it and make myself flip it. Okay. I sometimes go, what would I do? What advice would I give myself with this? So We'll just mention that I've just been to see my mum this morning, and she's got a funny driveway, and 2 or 3 times I've bottomed my car. I've gone over the top of the driveway, and then there's this awful grinding sound. Well, there's a button on my car which I never use at any other time ever, which lifts the car by about 6 or 7 centimeters. And she went, "Oh, Michael, Brad's coming to tidy up the garden, so will you park on the drive rather than outside?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I press the button, we go on the drive. I'm there for an hour. I have a coffee, have a chat, come out of the drive, press the button. The car goes down, and then suddenly goes, and then zooms back up again, and I balloons up, and it's like those. You know, when you see Snoop Dogg in one of those cars that bounces along in the ghetto in LA, or one of those monster truck things that goes, suddenly it starts to do that. And it's a 30-minute drive home from my mum's, and I bounced the whole way back. Well, you know what? A part of me could have got peed off about that. Oh, the car's broken down. It was just in getting its service and MOT last week. All that type of stuff. I thought, you know what? First of all, it didn't happen 2 hours away. Imagine that. Imagine if I'd been down in Leeds and then had to drive all the way home with that. That would have been uncomfortable. Secondly, I've built a really good relationship with our local garage. They're friends. You know, I recommend them. I put it out there. I'm always flexible if they want something. I never argue about the price. I rang them and they said, "Drop it off today. We're full. We're completely full, but we'll see it at some point. We'll at least get the work started." It's like, "Oh, that's brilliant. Do you need another car?" I was like, no, we're all going to be okay. And I got home and I was safe. And I thought, you know what? Look at what a wonderful, wonderful life I have. Now, I am fortunate that I can do that. And I am in a fortunate position where I can afford to pay for it. But also, if there are situations now, and I know that we sometimes have to fight ourselves with this because the popular press and lots of other things are determined to talk things down at the moment. They are determined to talk us into massive, massive problems. So even if it's only making a choice to say, okay, in my circumstance, I'm safe right now. Just to be able to say that, that's a flip it. So yeah, I might, yeah, my heating prices have gone up. Yeah, it's cost of living is terrible. Yes, there's a worry about this. I don't think I'm going to get that mortgage, whatever. Just say to yourself, I'm safe. Tell yourself I'm safe, because a lot of people in the world who aren't safe right now. And if you want a method to feel safe, this is something I just learned recently. Put your right hand on your chest and put your left hand on your stomach and just apply a little bit of pressure. And what you do is you create a neural pathway that says I'm safe when you do that. Wow. It's the most wonderful. Just test it now. Right hand across your chest, left hand on your tummy like that, and just squeeze in. And you feel it instantly. And you tell yourself, I'm safe. Right. Very, very simple flip. Very, very simple idea. And I think right now we need to keep reassuring ourselves that whatever's going on, I'm safe.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the more tools you can have, and this kind of links back to the conversation you're having about the book. Well, it could be one chapter, but the more tools that you can have at your disposal to be able to ultimately see things from a different perspective. I mean, mental health right now is a big topic, and my view of mental health is like with most things in life, I like to simplify things. So if you said, right, your physical health, because everybody's got physical health and everybody's got mental health. Yeah. Your physical health, if you wanted to improve your physical health, ultimately there's two things to do. There's move more and eat better. Generally, that's kind of it. And with mental health, I think it's very similar. It's just think differently or act differently. So that thinking differently, that reframing part is something that can absolutely be done. But if we were to take the different areas of life things, I know that you've applied Flip It in as you do in the book in lots of different areas. So how would someone apply the Flip It methodology in, say, a relationship?
Okay, so that's a classic thing. So first, I think with relationships, you need to understand, most people go into a relationship thinking, what can I get out of this? Right? Flip it thinking is, what can I put into this? You know, so if you're thinking, I'm not getting what I need from this relationship, say, okay, I'm going to flip it and I'm going to give for a while and see what happens. And it's really interesting. And again, this is happening today. This is happening live right now. I'm doing this here. Christine, my wife, is out there in the garden. It's cold today. She's been out in the garden all weekend. It's been cold all weekend. She's there doing the gardening. I came back. What's on my mind? The fact that the car's all bouncing along and stuff like that. I arrive in the garden. I go sit there. Chrissy, you'll not believe what's happened with the car. I start telling her all about the car and all about that type of stuff. And I said, anyway, I'm doing the podcast recording with Will, so I'm just nipping in the house now. And she went, anything else? I went, oh yeah. Do you want a cuppa? I'm going to make myself a cuppa before I sit down. She went, no, it's all right. And I suddenly realized all she needed from me was for me to come in and go, wow, look how much you've managed to do in the garden. This is looking brilliant. But I didn't. Now, it's not because I'm a bad husband, but at that moment, I could have been better. My focus wasn't on what can I give, it was what can I get. I wanted to get that bit of thing about my problem with my car and all that type of stuff. I wanted my little bit of significance. And of course, the flip it would say, right, instead, learn from that. Don't beat yourself up, but learn from it. Don't suddenly, and by the way, this is a particular thing for blokes, don't try and fix it straight away, because that's always a bad move. Right? To suddenly start going out, running out now, going, the garden looks great. Wow, look at all the work. It's going to be like, yeah, right, okay, I know what you're up to. But stopping, recognizing, that's the first thing. Next, create an opportunity within your relationship, a reminder to do nice things. The same way as you would schedule an important meeting or a birthday or something like that in your diary, schedule in a reminder to do something nice for your partner. And it doesn't have to be big things. A handwritten note left on a pillow is beautiful. We do a thing where we always, whoever goes to the bathroom first does the other person's toothbrush. We always put the toothpaste on the other person's toothbrush. And no matter what's happening in the day, we always do that. And it's just these little things that you can do, and every time you do it, you put that deposit into the emotional bank account, because sure enough, you will have to take withdrawals. There's no doubt about that. So flip it in relationships is give first. Don't even think about what you're going to get, and amazingly, it always comes back.
It really does, and you mentioned it earlier. The law of reciprocity, it never ceases to amaze me. But what people quite often will do, and they'll say, if you do something nice, and they go, "How could I possibly pay you back?" And I think that's another opportunity to flip it, because rather than thinking about paying it back, what about paying it forward?
Yeah.
Because if you imagine like 5 people. Actually, there's a really good analogy. I saw this pop up on Instagram the other day, and there was 4 watering cans. Talking about gardening, 4 watering cans. You know, the sort of ones where they've got the spout that comes up and the big handle, whatever.
Classic.
And what they'd done is they'd put them in a square so that the nozzle of one of the watering cans sort of kind of went over the big hole that you have at one end where the handle was near, and then they just poured another one, they sort of 5th one that they were pointing to, and they were all feeding each other. But that's the beauty of paying it forward, is it's not necessarily about that person paying you back, but it eventually works its way round in some way or another.
Yeah. There's a lot of thinking about what can I get out of this with all areas of life. And I think that, you know, that thing about greed is good and all that sort of stuff that we've been told, this idea of, you know, actually doing something without the need for anything back, true contribution. I think it is missing. There's a lot of people still doing it. There's a lot of people who I know it's part of what they do. But having that attitude of, if I can help somebody, I will, because that's what I want to do, I think is going a little bit. And I think as a society, we could do with spending a little bit more time, maybe flipping that and saying, okay, what can I do to help others?
Yeah, for sure. So that's obviously in relationships. It's an area where a lot of people at the moment will maybe be looking to improve. But what about with everything that's going on in an area at the moment that a number of people will be struggling with regards to financially, say, for example, the cost of living crisis, energy bills? Who's saying, well, that's all well and good, or Michael, that's all well and good, you saying, well, I can just flip it, but I've got a bill to pay. How are people able to deal with that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, sounds a crazy thing to say, gamify it. Gamify saving money. Make it a fun thing. Get your whole family involved. A couple of little simple things. A mate of mine, a few years ago now, 2009, when there was the financial crash, his business lost a load of money. He was a great spender. And he just made a decision. He said, I'm not going to leave the house with my credit cards. I'm going to leave the house with £1. That's enough for my locker at the gym. And if I want to do a little treat out and buy myself something. And he said, if I bring it home, I'm going to put it in a jar. So he gamified the game. So he wouldn't necessarily have to spend it because he loved to spend it, but if he brought it back, he would put it in a jar. And that was the idea. And he did that for a whole year, only took £1 out of the house. He saved £300, right? So amazing, he didn't even need the pound. This is a guy who, by the way, would spend 15 quid a day, no problem at all. Sandwich at lunchtime, coffee from here, beer after work, all that type of stuff. No problem at all. Easy 15 quid a day. You start adding that up over a bit of time. And because he gamified it, was great fun. At the end of the year, his wife said to him, brilliant, okay, you want your cards back now? Because he very sensibly given them to her and said, lock them away. And he went, no, I don't want them. I'm having too much fun. This is great. I love it. He also used to do a thing where if he found money on the floor, he would always collect that. So pennies, 5p's, whatever. And he had that in another jar. And in a year, it wasn't a huge amount, but it was something like 30 quid. But it just made the value of money that little bit more important. I'm not going to sit here and start saying to people, turn your thermostat down and all that type of stuff. Everyone knows that type of thing. But if we do it with a feeling of hate and remorse to have to do it, then we begrudge it. And as soon as you begrudge it, it makes it harder to do. If it's a game, if you try to make it fun, if you get your family involved, whatever, make meals go twice as far, we used to make food and preserve it. And now we buy a Greg's because it's instant gratification. Learn to cook, make stuff, make an extra meal, all that type of stuff. As long as you're having fun whilst doing it, that's a great way to do it. If you begrudge it, that's when it hurts.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of now and now as a time of people taking action, I know that a lot of people are thinking about doing various different things, and one of the things that a lot of people have been thinking about, where they've had more time, is pursuing dreams that they've always had. So that might be starting the business. It might be having the side business. It might be taking up a health hobby. For some people, it's writing a book.
Yeah.
And wanting to pursue that as an endeavor, whether it be like a fiction book, a children's book. I believe that that's something that you're have got something quite exciting going on.
Yeah, I mean, well, do you know, Will, that's really interesting. That whole general goal setting thing. For me, having a goal is about having purpose. When you've got a goal, there's purpose. You talk about it as the North Star, where you're going. Does this decision I'm making now help me get closer towards that goal or further away from it? That's the thing. And without a goal, we are rudderless. We just bob around. Now, it might be fine. But sometimes we overthink what we need as a goal. Oh, it's got to be a big goal. New career. Make £1 million, pay off my mortgage, whatever it might be. I think the most satisfying goal that I've seen people achieve in recent times is writing a book. And this started because at the beginning of lockdown, I had a group and I said to the group, if I could teach you to do anything, what would it be? And I really thought it was going to be time management, customer service, flip it, being brilliant, something like that. 75% of people, how to write a book. So I set up a program called Write That Book. We've had 3,000 people go through a pop-up now and work out whether they do want to write a book. And to be honest, about a third of those people get to the end of it and think, I probably don't want to write a book. I enjoyed it. I've become a better writer. I'm a bit more focused, but I really don't want to. Then we've created a masterclass, and we've had about 400 people go through the masterclass. And out of those 400 people, well over 100 now, about 150 have published their books. And if you're looking at this on the video version, that top shelf there, that's it, brilliant. Every single one of those books has been published by somebody who started with a goal, right? In my group, they started with a goal to write, publish, and sell their book. And I teach them and I help them. And I thought the best moment ever was when you open the box and you see your book for the first time. It's not. It's watching somebody else do that who you've helped. For me, anyway. And I see these, we call them unboxing videos, where people, they pick out their book and they hold it. It's like, this has really happened. And then they usually smell it as well. They smell of a newly printed book, and they get it and they go, it smells like a new book. And then they realize their name is on the front of that book. Honestly, it is the most incredible feeling. And the reality is that, the vast majority of these people aren't going to get big book deals. They're not going to sell, 50,000 copies, but loads of them have self-published. They've sold 500-600 copies. A couple of them have got book deals. Loads of people are leaving a real legacy. Fantastic stuff that people are doing with children's books, people who are writing personal development books and business books who become the authority at what they do. So when you write a book on a subject, you are the authority. And suddenly it's like, we're interested in getting someone to do this. Shall I send you a copy of my book? Brilliant. You've got the job. You've got the job. People aren't looking at your fee anymore. You wrote the book on the subject. And so it's the most incredible, rewarding thing. And I'm doing it again. I'm doing one more because I said I was going to do 3. This is going to be my 6th one. It's definitely my last one. So I'm doing one more, Write That Book. And if people want to get involved, go writethatbook.co.uk. Just write that book, 3 words all together, .co.uk. Have a look on there and say Will sent you. And we'll look after you. We'll help you to write that book.
Yeah, that's good. So that's other people might have that goals. And guys, I highly recommend you speak with Michael. I had the pleasure of Michael helping me with my book, the book title, when I was sort of unsure around book titles. I have now got, Michael, you'll be pleased to know, I have now got the edited final manuscript back for me to review. So but you know what? It's funny is that if I'm honest with myself, I had procrastinated around it a little bit for a variety of different reasons. But I feel that, I mean, ultimately I feel that it was for the right reason, and now that it just seems that everything's sort of a bit more aligned in terms of where it was. But yeah, so that's now exciting.
Will, let me say something. I enjoyed helping you with that, and we did some one-to-one stuff, and it was a pleasure to read through what your ideas were and look at the titles and that type of thing. If you'd been a member of Write That Book Masterclass, you would have published by now. And the reason why is you would have had momentum, trajectory, and accountability. Because there would have been, I promise you, 150 people saying, Will, when's it going to be published? I'm ready to buy it. I want it. Because you're such a great personality. People would buy into you. And as an extension, they would want to get your book. So I'm going to ask you the question I always ask you: when's your publication date? When can I get my hand on your book?
So it'll be. I haven't got the exact date yet. I know it'll be Q1 2023. So we can't get it out before Christmas. But it's been intentionally delayed a little bit because we're doing a rebrand. I wanted to make sure the book. You could see that the book title was all part of the same family, the brand that we're doing, and all the rest of it. So yeah, it is happening. I promise.
Right. I'm down. I'm buying copies. I'm promoting it. I'm telling everybody about it when you get your book published. I can't wait.
Looking forward to it. But what about you though, Michael? So ordinarily, and this, because this is a Michael Heppell 2.0. It's the second time having you on the podcast. Ordinarily, I will always start with why people do what they do and what it is that drives them. But what about you now? Obviously, you had the Sunday night, but the Sunday #1 Times bestseller. You've done some incredible things with your career. You're still regarded as one of the top 3 speakers in the world. What's your goals now? What's driving you?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One, and I'm going to give you a clue. If those people who can see this, can you see what that is there that I'm showing up at the screen?
Nail varnish.
Describe it. It's nail varnish. It's a ladybird.
Ladybird. Yeah.
Nail varnish, right? Why have I got that? Because I am now a grandfather. I know, looking at me, you're thinking, what? How could he possibly be a grandfather? But I'm a grandfather. I've got a 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and that's why my nail is painted as a ladybird, because at the weekend we had Ella, and we painted I've also got a golden carrot on my thumb, which is another story. I am loving being a grandparent, and I want to be a brilliant grandparent. What do brilliant grandparents do? It's that subtle level between how much you get involved and when it's seen as interfering. It's been there as a person who can be a great counsel for your granddaughter and also the most fun, silliest person at the same time. The one who says no and is firm, but the one who allows them to get away with a little bit of something because it's granddad. And all of those balances are all the time. And I'm working that out and I'm loving it. And Christine, my wife, she's a glam ma, not a grandma. She's a glam ma because Christine looks about 35 and nobody can quite believe that she's a grandma. And Honestly, that is brilliant. So I want to be a brilliant grandparent. The other thing I want to do is I love speaking. I love doing presentations. Because we weren't able to for about 2 years when there wasn't many events happening. We're back on the road now and we're doing stuff. And we've started to work with a couple of very, very interesting but very challenging clients. And one of them is within the National Health Service. They have a unique set of challenges. They need people who can come in and help them, who do understand the level of the problems and the complexity. They're not just going to stand on a stage and go rah rah, all you have to do, because nobody really wants to hear that. So we've done one 6-month project with a big NHS trust. I think we're about to do another one. I find that fascinating, really fascinating, because it impacts so many lives at so many levels, and it's such a big part of our life in the UK, the NHS. So I want to do more of that. And then also I'm writing another book, which will be published on February the 21st. February the 21st. I've got the date, you see, Will.
Yeah.
February the 21st. So I'm writing a book called Write That Book, and it's the book on how to write a book. And I'm doing that, and I'm launching. The reason I've got the date is I'm the keynote speaker at a book festival in Alnwick, where they filmed the Harry Potter stuff and all that type of thing. So I'm doing the keynote there, and I have to launch the book because they've said Michael will be here with his new book. So there's nothing like putting yourself on the spot to make sure you're going to hit your publication day.
Bit of accountability. There we go.
Yeah. So I'll be doing that, and I'm looking forward to having a new book out, especially one that's a real a self-help with a very specific purpose. The promise of the book is that read the book, do what's inside, and I promise that you will successfully write, publish, and sell your book.
Amazing. Love it. Well, Michael, thank you so much, as always, for coming and being a guest. It's been wonderful catching up. If people want to find out more about you, want to get access to your books, they want to find out about the up-and-coming challenge you've got going on, where can people connect with you, find you?
Easiest way, I mean, if you search Michael Heppell, it's Heppell. I'm a funny Heppell, and ELL Heppell. Search Michael Heppell. We should come up first on Google. Connect with me on LinkedIn, follow me on stuff, send a message, say you've listened to this, send your friend of Will's. If your friend of Will's, your friend of mine. Write That Book is writethatbook.co.uk. Just have a little look there at what we're doing and get involved. And if I can help you, I will. I really mean that. I want to help you. I'm not selling you a course. I'm not selling you a book. I'm selling you an opportunity for me to help you, because that's how it works.
Fantastic. Well, Michael, thanks again. For everybody who's been listening, until next time, make it happen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast. Make sure you join Will's free Facebook group, the Make It Happen community. Please support the show by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Share this episode with at least one friend you think would benefit from it, and give Will a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. Until next time, make it happen.